Imagine this for a second. You're the founder and CEO of a company you've spent the last 10 years building. You bootstrapped it from nothing. You skipped vacations. You delayed gratification. You protected every dollar like it mattered, because it did. Now the company is finally profitable. Cash flow is solid. The future looks stable. And then one day, you decide to bring on a partner, not an employee, a full co-founder. You sign a contract that gives this person unrestricted access to the company bank account, 50% ownership of everything you've built so far, and 50% of everything you will ever build in the future. You also agree that if they decide to walk away at any point, for any reason, they can take half the cash, half the intellectual property, and potentially force you to keep paying them for years after they're gone. No performance clauses, no guardrails, no exit plan. You didn't run a background check. You didn't review their financial history. You didn't ask about their debt, their spending habits, or how they've handled money in the past. You signed the deal purely because you had a good feeling. If you did this in business, you wouldn't just be called reckless, you'd be unemployable. Any board of directors would remove you immediately. Venture capitalists would laugh you out of the room. Yet every single year, millions of intelligent, rational adults sign this exact contract. We just don't call it a merger. We call it marriage. Before you tense up, let me be very clear about something. This is not an anti-marriage video. This is not an argument against love, commitment, or building a life with someone. If anything, it's the opposite. This is about protecting those things from a risk most people never bother to examine. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Love doesn't protect you from bad math, and romance doesn't override legal contracts. This video exists for one reason only, to take emotion out of the driver's seat for a few minutes and put reality back behind the wheel. Not to scare you away from marriage, but to keep you from sleepwalking into a financial structure you don't understand. Fear isn't the goal, clarity is. And clarity is what allows you to make decisions that don't quietly sabotage your future. If you're single, this matters because you're still choosing. If you're married, this matters because systems can be changed even when people can't. And if money has ever been the source of tension in your relationship, this conversation is long overdue. In the eyes of the law, marriage is not a poetic union of souls. It is a legal and financial merger of two economic entities. The moment you say, "I do," you trigger a chain reaction of tax rules, property laws, liability statutes, and financial obligations that bind your future to another person's behavior. Whether you're aware of it or not, your balance sheet just merged with theirs. What makes this dangerous isn't the contract itself. Contracts exist to create structure. What makes it dangerous is that almost no one reads it. People will spend more time scrolling through the terms and conditions of an iPhone update than understanding the legal framework of marriage. They walk in guided by dopamine, oxytocin, and optimism, assuming love will somehow neutralize risk. It doesn't. It never has. And this isn't about being pessimistic. It's about recognizing incentives. The legal system doesn't care how much you love each other. It only cares how assets, income, and liabilities are defined. Once you're married, your partner's financial decisions don't just affect them, they legally affect you. Their debt can become your problem. Their risk tolerance can shape your future. Their habits can either accelerate your wealth or quietly erode it over decades. Marriage doesn't change human behavior, it amplifies it. And once you understand that, the rest of the math becomes impossible to ignore. This is where most people get it wrong. They assume financial damage in marriage comes from dramatic events, gambling addictions, secret affairs, reckless blow-ups. In reality, wealth is usually destroyed quietly, one harmless decision at a time. This is the slow death, and it almost always starts with a saver marrying a spender. A saver finds safety in liquidity, planning, and compounding. A spender finds relief and dopamine in consumption. Neither one is evil. Neither one is broken. But put them under the same financial roof, and you don't get balance, you get friction. Constant, exhausting friction. Let's say you're disciplined. You save $20,000 a year. That's not extreme. Over 30 years, at a modest 8% return, that habit alone turns you into a millionaire. Now introduce a partner who doesn't see money the same way. They're not irresponsible. They just enjoy nicer cars, better vacations, daily conveniences, and being generous with gifts. Individually, none of this feels reckless. Collectively, it's devastating. Those small upgrades add $15,000 a year in extra spending. Suddenly, your savings drop from $20,000 to $5,000. Run that math. 30 years of saving $5,000 doesn't build freedom, it builds delay. The difference between those two paths isn't taste. It's roughly $1.5 million in lost compounding. You didn't lose that money in a crash. You didn't gamble it away. You lost it because someone else's spending habits acted like a parasitic drag on your future. You're trying to fill a bucket while someone else is drilling holes in the bottom. And here's the psychological toll. You become the bad guy, the no police. Every conversation about money turns into conflict, so eventually you stop pushing. Not because you're wrong, but because the cost of excellence feels too high. As bad as the slow bleed is, it's still the better outcome. Because the alternative isn't erosion, it's detonation. Divorce is the sudden death event that most people dramatically underestimate. Not emotionally, financially. Let's look at the math without flinching. Roughly 40 to 50% of first marriages end in divorce. Second and third marriages fail at even higher rates. That means marriage, statistically, is a coin flip. Imagine an investment with a 50% chance of compounding steadily, and a 50% chance of instantly wiping out half your net worth. No rational risk manager would touch that. Yet people take this bet with their entire economic future. When a marriage ends, the first thing that dies is efficiency. Two incomes once supported one household, one rent, one utility bill, one internet plan. That scale created surplus cash flow. Divorce shatters it overnight. Now the same income supports two separate lives. Your overhead doubles instantly. Before any assets are even divided, you're already poorer. Then comes the asset split. Let's say a couple has a net worth of $500,000. In many states, that gets divided evenly. You walk away with $250,000, but that number is a lie. Legal fees alone in a contested divorce can run $50,000 to $70,000 per person. Now you're closer to $200,000. Selling a home triggers realtor commissions, closing costs, moving expenses. Liquidating investments at the wrong time creates taxes and market losses. By the time the dust settles, 60 to 70% of your purchasing power is gone. You're back near zero, older, more exhausted, and with far less time left for compounding to save you. And we're still not done with the damage, because divorce doesn't always end when the paperwork is signed. For many people, it creates a long-term liability that follows them for years. Alimony and child support aren't abstract concepts. They're fixed monthly obligations enforced by the state. If you're the higher earner, the law may require you to continue funding a lifestyle you no longer participate in. The partnership failed, but the payments didn't. I've seen high earners making $200,000 a year, living in studio apartments, eating cheap food, driving decade-old cars, not because they're irresponsible, but because after taxes, support payments, and basic expenses, their disposable income collapses. They're generating money, but they're not building wealth. They're servicing the past. Then there's financial infidelity, one of the most under-discussed risks in marriage. This is when a partner hides debt, hides spending, or lies about money altogether. Surveys consistently show that a significant portion of adults admit to doing this. And here's the part most people don't understand. In many situations, you are legally tethered to your spouse's financial behavior. Their credit cards, their loans, their defaults. If they quietly destroy their credit, your ability to borrow, invest, or even rent can be crippled. You might think you're swimming together, only to realize one person has been secretly tying weights to your ankles, and by the time you notice, you're already underwater. Now here's the part most people never hear, because fear gets more clicks than nuance. When marriage is done right, it is the single most powerful wealth-building structure available to the middle class. Not because of romance, because of math, alignment, and scale. Two high-income earners with shared financial values living on less than they make create something incredibly rare: surplus. One rent, one set of utilities, shared transportation, shared goals. But the real advantage isn't just lower expenses. It's coordination. Two people pulling in the same direction compound faster than one person fighting drag. You get redundancy. When one income dips, the other stabilizes the system. When one person feels tempted to overspend, the other acts as friction. A financially aligned marriage doesn't just grow wealth, it protects it. It becomes a fortress against randomness. And this is where the conversation needs balance. The stay-at-home partner isn't a financial liability. They're a strategic trade-off. One person sacrifices earning potential to create stability elsewhere: childcare, household management, emotional bandwidth. That contribution has real economic value, even if it doesn't show up on a paycheck. Ignoring that reality creates resentment and legal consequences later. The problem isn't marriage. The problem is entering a high-stakes financial merger without shared values, clear systems, or defined boundaries. The upside of marriage is enormous, but only when both partners compound each other instead of discounting each other. So how do you de-risk a decision this big without killing the romance? You stop trying to change people, and you start building systems. Hope is not a strategy. Guardrails are. And the earlier you install them, the cheaper the consequences. If you're not married yet, the first step is financial vetting. That sounds unromantic, but it's no different than due diligence in any serious partnership. You need a money conversation before you get engaged, not after. Credit scores, student loans, spending habits, attitudes toward debt, not to judge, to understand, because values don't magically align after a ring shows up. If you're already married and you're realizing there's a spender problem, intervention matters more than intention. You don't need constant arguments. You need structure, separate accounts, a yours, mine, and ours system, automated savings that move money out before it can be spent. You protect the household by limiting exposure, not by policing behavior. And yes, this includes prenuptial agreements. Not because you expect failure, but because you respect reality. A prenup is insurance. You don't buy insurance because you plan to crash your car. You buy it because driving is dangerous. Marriage is no different. It forces the hard conversations while trust is still high, instead of leaving your future to default state laws written for people who don't know you. At the end of the day, this isn't about fear. It's about respect for your time, your effort, and your future earning power. Who you marry is not just a romantic decision. It's an asset allocation decision. You are committing your income, your energy, and decades of compounding to one person. Choose accordingly. Don't pick a partner because the story sounds good. Don't pick potential. Don't pick chemistry without alignment. Pick someone who compounds you, not someone who discounts you. A broken heart can heal. A broken retirement account follows you for the rest of your life. If this video made you uncomfortable, that's not a bad thing. It means you're paying attention. And if you're in a serious relationship, this isn't a video to post publicly. It's a video to send to one person and start a conversation that could quietly change your entire future. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you've ever wondered why so many financially disciplined people still end up stressed, stuck, or quietly falling behind, this is usually the reason. Money mistakes don't come from ignorance, they come from blind spots. And marriage is the biggest blind spot most adults never audit. Not because they're careless, but because no one teaches them to look at it this way. This channel exists to break down those invisible risks, the psychological traps, the lifestyle inflation, the decisions that drain wealth without making a sound. If this perspective resonates, you're in the right place. Subscribe if you want more conversations about financial psychology, wealth protection, and building freedom without burnout. Because getting rich is optional. Staying broke by accident shouldn't be.